Chapter 9, Dachnik Day and an All-Earth Holiday. But why Russian Dachniks in particular? What's the connection here? You see, Vladimir, even though the Earth is very large, it is very, very sensitive. Think of how big you are by comparison with a tiny mosquito. And yet when a mosquito lands on you, you feel it through your skin. And the Earth also feels it. Everything. When people pave it over with concrete and asphalt, when they cut down trees and burn the forests growing on it, when they pick and poke at its innards and sprinkle it with powder called fertilizer, it feels the hurt. And yet still it loves people, as a mother loves her children. And the Earth tries to absorb into its depths all humanity's anger. And only when it no longer has the strength to hold it back, that anger explodes in the form of volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. The Earth needs our help. Tenderness and a loving attitude give it strength. The Earth may be large, but it is most sensitive, and it feels the tender caress of even a single human hand. Oh, how it feels and anticipates this touch. There was a time in Russia when the Earth was deemed to belong to everyone, and therefore nobody in particular. So people did not think of it as their own. Then changes came in Russia. They began giving out tiny private plots to people to go with their dachas. It was no coincidence at all that these plots were extremely small, too small to cultivate with mechanized equipment, but Russians, yearning for contact with the Earth, took to them with joyous enthusiasm. They went to people both poor and rich, because nothing can break man's connection with the Earth. After obtaining their little plots of land, people intuitively felt their worth, and millions of pairs of human hands began touching the Earth with love. With their hands, you understand, not with mechanized tools. Lots and lots of people touched the ground caressingly on these little plots, and the Earth felt this. It felt it very much. It felt the blessing touch of each individual hand upon it, and the Earth found new strength to carry on. So what now? I queried. Should we erect a monument to every Dachnik as the saviour of the planet? Yes, Vladimir, they are saviours indeed. But that would be far too many monuments. I have it. Why not set up a 1 or 2 day national holiday, Dachnik Day, or an All-Earth Day? It could be designated in the calendar. Ooh, a holiday! Anastasia threw up her arms in elation. What a terrific idea indeed. A celebration, a happy and cheerful holiday. That is something we definitely need. And you, with that ray of yours, can suggest to the government, to our deputies in the State Duma, that they pass the required legislation. I cannot get through to them. They're too busy with their daily routine. They have so many decisions to make, they have absolutely no time to think. Besides, there is not much point in my attempting to raise their conscious awareness. It would be difficult for them to accept a complete conscious picture of reality. They're not allowed to make any better resolutions than those they are passing at the moment. Who can stop the government or the president from so doing? You, the masses, the majority. As for correct decisions, they are what you call unpopular measures. Yes, you're right. We have democracy. The most important decisions are taken by the majority. The majority is always right. The great conscious awareness is always achieved first by individuals, Vladimir. It always takes the majority a space of time to catch on. If that's true, then why do we need democracy referendums? They are needed to serve as a shock absorber to avoid sudden jerks. When these shock absorbers do not work, revolution occurs. A revolutionary period is always a challenge for the majority. But a Dachnik Day, that's not revolution. What's wrong with it? A holiday like that is fine. It is needed, definitely needed. It should be set up as quickly as possible. I shall think about how it can be done as quickly as possible. I'll help you. I know better which levers to pull in our world for the most effective results. I'll write to the papers. No better still, I'll write about the Dachniks in that book of yours and ask people to send telegrams to the government and the Duma requesting the establishment of a Dachnik Day as an all-earth holiday. Only what date should it be? The 23rd of July. Why the 23rd? It is an appropriate day, also because it is your birthday, Vladimir. After all, this fantastic idea is all yours. That's great. So we'll ask people to send telegrams asking for legislation setting up the 23rd of July as Dachnik Day and an all-earth holiday. And as soon as the telegrams start arriving at the Duma and people begin to wonder why people are sending them, you burst in with your ray. Burst in I shall burst in with all my might, and it will be fine, bright and beautiful holiday. For everyone will have such a good time, and the whole earth will rejoice in its light. Why does everybody have to have a good time? This holiday is only for Dachniks, isn't it? We must see that everyone has a good time. This holiday will indeed begin in Russia, but then it will become the most fantastic holiday for the world as a whole, a marvellous holiday for the soul. And how will it be celebrated the first time in Russia? I inquired. Nobody will know what to make of it. Each one's heart will suggest on that day what he should do and how. I can visualise a general outline right now. Then Anastasia began talking, clearly enunciating each word. She talked with both speed and inspiration. It was all most extraordinary. The rhythm of her speech, the arrangement of her phrases, the pronunciation of her words. May all of Russia wake that day at dawn. May people alone or with friends and family come to the land and stand upon it with bare feet. Those who have their little plot of land, let them greet with praise the first rays of the sun amidst the shoots and seedlings they have planted, and touch each species with caressing hands. As the sun rises in the sky, let them pick and taste the fruit of their plantings, one from each variety, and that should suffice them up till the midday meal. Before the meal, let them tend their plots anew. Let each one ponder their life and joy and what they are destined to do. Let each remember their family and friends with love, and ponder why their planted seeds are growing, and designate the purpose of every plant. And even before the midday feast, everyone should spend at least an hour by themselves. It's not important how or where or exactly when, but they should be alone for a spell. To spend at least an hour in an effort to look within themselves. Let the whole family gather for the meal in the middle of the day, those living at home and those who have come from far away. Let dinner be prepared from what the earth has borne for the hour of repast. Let everyone bring to the whole table whatever is desired by his heart and soul. Let all the family members look each other lovingly in the eye, and let the eldest bless the table together, and the youngest, and let the table all around with quiet conversation resound. There should be good words spoken about all these who sit beside you. Oh. The scene Anastasia described was so extraordinarily vivid that I could feel myself sitting at the table with people all around. I found myself caught up in the celebration. I was believing in it, or rather I was participating in it, and I felt led to contribute a feature of my own. There should be a toast before dinner. Everyone raise their glass. Let's drink to the earth. Let's drink to love. I actually felt I was holding the glass in my hand. Then suddenly she broke into my reverie. Vladimir, please let there be no alcoholic poison on the table. The glass vanished from my hand. Stop it, Anastasia. Don't spoil the celebration. Well, since you have your mind set on it, let there be some wine from berries, but this must be imbibed in very small sips. All right, wine it is then, just so as not to change our habits all at once. And after dinner, then what shall we do? Let the people return to the cities and towns, having gathered the fruit they have grown on their little plots of ground. Let them bear it in baskets and share it with everyone at home who do not have plots of their own. Oh, how many positive feelings will come from this day. They will bring about healings of many people's diseases, diseases which threatened with death, and those not erased by time, will simply vanish. Let those who are incurably or even slightly ill go out and meet the flood of Dachniks returning from their plots. The rays of love and of good, along with the fruits of their labours, will heal diseases. Look and see. Look at the city's main railway station, where floods of people are arriving with baskets of flowers. Look and see, and the people's eyes glimmering with kindness, joy, and peace. Anastasia was virtually glowing with radiance as she became more and more inspired with the idea of the holiday. Her eyes were no longer merely shining with joy. They were literally sparkling with a pale blue luminescence. The expression on her face was changing, yet still remained joyful, as though a mighty flood of images of this celebration were rushing through her brain. All at once she fell silent, then bending one leg at the knee and lifting up her right arm, she sprang from the ground with a tremendous recoil, virtually taking flight like an arrow shot from the earth. She leapt almost as high as the bottom branches of the cedars. Upon landing, she waved her arm, clapped her hands, and a bluish glow flooded the glade. All the words Anastasia now uttered seemed to be echoed by each tiny bug and blade of grass and each majestic cedar. Her voice sounded as though it were being reinforced by a hidden power. Even though her words were not that loud, it seemed as though they could be heard by every vein running through the unfathomable expanse of the universe. Mother Russia will greet crowds of guests on that day. They are all of the earth as Atlanteans born. As prodigal sons they shall return. On that day, all over Russia, let everyone wake and greet the dawn. Let all the strings of the harp of the universe make cheerful melody and swell with resonant sound. Let all the bards sing and tell with joyful tongue, and play guitars in all the streets, in every yard around. And he who is too old will once again be young, as many, many years ago. And I, Anastasia, will I be young once more? Both you and I, Vladimir, shall be young, and people will feel young for the very first time. And the old shall write letters to their children, and children to their parents, and infants taking their very first steps on earth shall enter a better world of joy and mirth. And on that day no child shall feel insulted, for adults shall treat children as their equals. And all the gods on high will to the earth descend, and will commend themselves to take on simple forms. And God himself, the universal God, will be delighted. May you rejoice too in love, making all the earth so bright. Anastasia was really getting carried away with images of the holiday. She was whirling around the glade in a fiery dance, becoming more and more inspired at every step. Stop! Stop! I cried to Anastasia, suddenly realizing that she was taking it all too seriously. She was not merely uttering words. I now realized her every word and novel turn of phrase was actually a visualization. She was visualizing images of the celebration, and with her typical stubbornness, she will go on visualizing and dreaming about it until the dream turns into reality. Like a die-hard fanatic, she will dream. She will give her all to those Dachniks, just as she has done for the past 20 years, and I cried out to her, "What's going on? Don't you understand? All that stuff about a holiday, it's all just in fun. I was just teasing." Anastasia suddenly stopped in her tracks. No sooner did I catch a glimpse of her than I felt a big lump in my throat from the look on her face. Her face looked bewildered like that of a child. She looked at me with pain and pity as though I were an unremitting attacker, and almost in a whisper she started saying, "Vladimir, I took it seriously. I've already visualized it all. And to life's chain of events, people's forthcoming telegrams have already interwoven a link. The order of events will be broken without them. I have accepted your words, believed them, and brought them to pass. I perceived you were speaking of the holiday and telegrams sincerely. Do not take back the words you have spoken. Just help me with the telegrams so that I may, as you said, offer assistance with my ray. Okay, I'll try, only don't panic. Maybe it'll end up that nobody will even want to send the telegrams. There will be people who will comprehend. They will feel it in the government and in your Duma as well. And a holiday there will be. It will arise. Time will tell. Look here. And once again, celebration images passed before my eyes. There, I've written about it. Now you can go and do as your heart and soul dictates. And then in the notes, in 1998, 1 year after this book was first published in Russian, the governor of St. Petersburg, Vladimir Yakovlev, instituted a Gardener's Day, giving the residents of St. Petersburg and the surrounding region an additional day off to spend on their garden plots. Since then, this example has been followed by many regional authorities, and while not yet instituted on the national level, the holiday is officially celebrated in dozens of cities and regions throughout Russia. The date of the holiday varies from region to region. End of chapter 9. Chapter 10. The Ringing Sword of the Bard. What do you mean, Anastasia, by such extraordinary turns of phrase in speaking about the holiday? You pronounced each word in such a tone that every sound was crystal clear on its own. I tried to reproduce a picture of the holiday with precision, to use detailed images. But what about the words? What particular significance do they have? Upon each word was born a multitude of happy pictures and events, and now they will all come true. For thought and word, you understand, are the principal instrument of the grand Creator. An instrument bestowed not on all that grows with flesh and bones, but just alone to man. Then why doesn't everything that people say come to pass? When the thread between the spoken word and the soul is broken, when the soul is found empty and the image dulled, then what is said, though it be plenty, is as empty as chaotic sound, and nothing can it betoken. That's sheer fantasy. Come on now. You let yourself believe in everything like a naive child. How can it be fantasy, Vladimir? After all, I could give hundreds of examples from the world you live in, and even from your own life, as to what power a word has when it projects the image connected with it. Then give me an example I can understand. An example. Here is one. A person is standing on the stage before an audience and speaking words. An actor, for instance. He will repeat the same words people have heard many times before, but there is only one actor people will with breath. Another they will not adore. The words are the same, but the difference in how they are declaimed. What do you think? Why does that happen? Well, that's actors for you. They spend years studying at drama. Some are outstanding in their profession, others are so-so. They memorise their rehearsals so that they can say them with expression. They are taught at drama school, Vladimir, how to get inside the image that underlies. Then they try to reproduce that image during rehearsals. And if an actor projecting even 10% of the invisible images underlying the audience will then listen with their whole attention. And if he should succeed in projecting the images behind half of his words, you will indeed call that actor a genius, for his soul is speaking directly with the souls of those sitting or standing in the auditorium. And during the play, people will laugh or cry as they feel in their soul what the actor desires to convey. Such is the instrument of the grand Creator. And you, whenever you speak, With how many words can you project the corresponding image? 10% or 50? With all of them. That is the way great-grandfather taught me. All of them? Really? All the words? Great-grandfather said it is even possible to project the images contained in the letters of the alphabet, and I learned how to come up with an image for each letter. Why letters? Letters don't mean anything. Letters do mean something. Behind every letter, in Sanskrit, for example, there are words, even whole phrases. There are letters there too, and beyond them, many written words, so that infinity is hidden in every letter. Well, isn't that something? And we just splutter out our words. Yes, that is what happens to words that have been passed down to us over thousands of years. They have passed through and penetrated time and space, and the forgotten images underlying them still today are once more attempting to knock on the door of the human race. And they watch out for our souls and even go to war on our behalf, on their behalf. And what kind of words are these? Is there at least one that might be familiar to me? Of course there is, at least as a sound you have heard. But people have forgotten what underlies these words. Anastasia lowered her eyelids and sat silent for a while. Then very quietly, almost in a whisper, she asked me, Vladimir, please pronounce the word bard. Bard, I said. She shuddered, almost as though in pain, and said, Oh, the indifference and banality of your pronunciation of that majestic word. You blew a cold gust of emptiness and neglect upon the candle's restless flickering flame. A flame that has been connected through the centuries and possibly even addressed to you or someone else living today by a distant forebear. Forgetfulness of our derivation is the cause of our modern devastation. And just what didn't you like about my pronunciation? What should I be remembering in connection with that word? Anastasia fell silent. Then in a quiet voice she began uttering phrases straight out of antiquity. Long before Christ's birth there lived certain people on the earth, our forebears, who were called Celts. Their wise teachers were known as Druids. Many peoples inhabiting the earth at that time knelt before the Druids' knowledge of the material and spiritual worlds. Not a single Celtic warrior would dare unsheath his sword in the presence of a Druid. To be awarded the title of Druid, even at the starting level, they had to undergo at least 20 years of arduous training at the hands of a spiritual teacher, a Druid priest. Those who were consecrated in his domain were known as bards. They alone had the moral authority to go out among the people and sing about and inculcate the light and truth contained in their song, using words to project images and heal people's hearts. The Celts fell subject to attacks by Roman legions. Their last battle took place at a river. The Romans noticed that there were women walking among the Celtic warriors, women with long flowing hair. Experienced Roman commanders, though knowing what this meant, that they would have to outnumber the Celts 6-1 in order to defeat them, were unaware of the reason why. Nor do modern historians and researchers have a complete explanation. It all had to do with these unarmed women with their long flowing hair. The Romans surged in with a mighty force, outnumbering the Celts 9-1. Aligned with their backs up against the river, the last family of fighting Celts was on the verge of defeat. They stood strong in a semicircle. Behind them was a young woman breastfeeding a wee baby girl and singing. The young mother sang a bright and cheerful song, so as not to instill doleful fear in the little one's soul, so that she would be left with images of light. Whenever the little one tore herself away from her mother's breast, their eyes would meet. The woman would cease her singing, and each time tenderly utter her baby's name, Barda. Soon there was no longer any semicircle to defend the pair. All that stood between the nursing mother and the flood of Roman legionaries making their way along the narrow path was a young girl and blood-gored bard armed only with a sword. He turned to look at the woman, their eyes met and they smiled at each other. The wounded bard managed to stave off the Romans, while the woman went down to the river and put her wee baby girl into a little boat and pushed it away from the river bank. With one last great effort of willpower, the bleeding bard threw down his weapon at the woman's feet. She took up his sword and fought for 4 hours straight with the legionnaires on the narrow path, preventing them from reaching the shore. Their strength became spent and they spelled each other off on the narrow path. The Roman commanders looked on in silent astonishment, but could not understand how strong and experienced soldiers could not come close enough to even scratch the woman's body. For 4 bruising hours she fought the flood of Roman attackers. Then the woman's lungs gave out, dried up with dehydration as no liquid had touched her tongue, and drips of blood began oozing from her cracked, beautiful lips. Slowly sinking to her knees, her strength waning all the while, she still managed one more faint smile in the direction of the little boat carrying away her wee Barda, a future songstress, downstream with the current, and one more gleam of the word and its image, which have been carried down through the millennia for the benefit of many living upon the earth today. Man's being is not only in the flesh. Man's invisible feelings, aspirations and sensations are immeasurably sharper and greater than what could be discerned by the ear or eye. As in a mirror, they are but partially reflected in the visible material state. The baby Barda grew into girlhood and later became a woman and a mother. She lived on the earth and sang. Her songs imparted to people only bright feelings, and like the all-healing ray, helped them chase away the gloominess of the heart. Many of life's afflictions and deprivations tried to extinguish the source of this ray. The hidden forces of darkness tried to break through to it, but could not overcome the one obstacle in their way, the bard and his wife who stood looming before them on the narrow path. Man's essence is not in the flesh, Vladimir. The bard's bleeding body projected into eternity the smile of his soul's blessed light, reflecting the unseen essence of man. And the lungs of the young mother holding the sword gave out, after a while, blood dripped, then poured from the cracks in her lips, which had caught the bard's bright smile. And now, Vladimir, believe in me, understand and see, and you will hear the ring of the invisible sword of the bard, beating back the attack of the dark and angry forces on the path to the hearts of his descendants today. Now, please pronounce the word bard once again, Vladimir. I can't, not until I can say it with proper meaning. Then I shall most certainly pronounce it. Thank you for not attempting it, Vladimir. Tell me, Anastasia, after all, you are able to tell. Who among those living today are the direct descendants of that nursing mother and the girl, the songstress Barda, of the bard warrior who stood on the narrow path? Who can forget something as important as his ancestry? Tell me, Vladimir, why this question came to your thought. I want to get a good look at that person or persons who have forgot such things, those who do not remember where they came from, those without feeling for the same. Perhaps you want to make certain that you are not the one who is forgetting? Now, what does that... Never mind, Anastasia, I've got it now. You needn't give it another thought. Let each person figure it out for themselves. Fine, she replied and fell silent, looking at me. and I too kept silent for a time, reflecting on the pictures Anastasia had painted. And then I asked her, "Why did you choose that particular word as an example?" "To show you how the images underlying it in the real world will soon make visible form. Guitar strings in swarms are now vibrating under the fingers of today's Russian bards. Even back when I was dreaming about it all in the taiga, these bards were the first to feel the images, their hearts and their souls. At first it was only in one of them that flared a flickering burning flame and the delicate resonance of a guitar string, but then the souls of others caught the rhythm and joined in. Soon their songs will be heard by many, both far and near. These are the bards who will help us behold the new dawn, the dawn of enlightenment of human hearts and souls. You shall hear their songs, and these will be new songs, songs of the awakening dawn." End of chapter 10. Chapter 11. A sharp about turn. Returning to the ship after my 3-day stay with Anastasia, it was some time before I was in a frame of mind to take charge of company business. At first I was unable either to decide on the ship's next destination or answer the many radiograms coming in from Novosibirsk. And the hired workers and even some of my crew apparently sensed my inattention to the daily routine and began stealing. They were arrested by the police from Surgut, the town where the ship was docked. Working with my bodyguards and detention papers were drawn up, but even this was not something I felt like delving into at the time. It's hard to say at the moment just why my talks with Anastasia had such a strong effect on me. Before this, my firm had received many visits from representatives of all sorts of religious denominations. They claimed they wanted to do something good for society and always asked for money. Sometimes I would oblige just so they would go away, without looking too deeply into the cause they were collecting for. And what was the point of asking them more questions if the conversation always ended up with a request for money? In contrast to all these so-called religious people, Anastasia never asked for money. In any case, I couldn't even imagine what I could give her. Outwardly, it seemed she had nothing, and yet I gradually got the impression that she had everything. I gave orders for the ship to proceed full speed to Novosibirsk and hold myself away in my cabin to think. My more than 10 years' experience in business and team management had taught me a lot. The highs and lows I had gone through had given me the skills I needed to seek and find a way out of all sorts of tricky situations. This time, however, I felt I was at rock bottom. All the troubles imaginable came upon me simultaneously. The failure of the firm appeared imminent. One of the so-called well-wishers had already started a rumour, now increasing in currency, that something had happened to me and that I was no longer capable of making sound business decisions. So people concluded it was sauve qui peut, every man for himself, and that's exactly what happened. Upon my return, I saw how people were saving themselves. Even my relatives had their hand in it, pilfering what they could from the company. It's all going to go broke anyway, they figured. There was just one small group of my long-time employees who had tried to withstand the onslaught. But after the arrival of the lead ship, upon seeing what kind of literature I had my nose into, even they became worried about my mental state. I myself had a perfectly clear and sober perspective on what was happening. I was fully aware that I was no longer in any position to manage this team effectively. Even those I had earlier trusted as my tried and true supporters were now starting to cast doubt upon any decisions I took. Even though I very much wanted to tell everyone who would listen about Anastasia, it hardly seemed possible to count on anybody's understanding. It might even land me in the loony bin. My family were already starting to talk about what kind of treatment I needed. Without saying so in so many words, those around me were demanding I get back down to earth and come up with a business plan, and a successful one at that. They dismissed my latest distraction as either madness or a nervous breakdown. I had really begun thinking about all sorts of things in this life of ours. What's going on here, I thought. You hustle through one commercial operation and even earn big money, but where's the satisfaction? You immediately want more. And it's been going on like that for over 10 years now. Where's the guarantee that this race won't last my whole life long without so much as a whiff of satisfaction? One person gets upset because he doesn't have enough money for a bottle of vodka. A billionaire gets upset because he doesn't have enough for some major acquisition or another. Maybe it's not the amount of money that counts. One morning, 2 old acquaintances of mine, both entrepreneurs in charge of big commercial firms, came to see me at my office. I started talking with them about setting up a commonwealth of pure-minded entrepreneurs, about the purpose and goals of our business activities. After all, I just had to share all this with somebody. They played along, nodding now and then in agreement. It was a long conversation, and I ended up thinking to myself, could it be that they actually grasped it? They did spend a lot of time discussing it, after all. Later, my driver told me, you know, Vladimir Nikolaevich, they were asked to come to see you by people concerned about your health. They wanted to know what you've been preoccupied with all this time, what's been on your mind. In short, to make sure you haven't lost your mind. They wanted to know whether they should call in a psychiatrist or simply wait and let it pass. And what do you think of my mental state? He fell silent for a while and then said quietly, for 10 years your work's gone along just great. Many in the city have said you're a successful businessman, but now all your employees are afraid they may be left without a paycheck. It was only then I realised the extent of people's concern about me, and I said to the driver, turn the car around. I went back to the office. I called an emergency staff meeting. I appointed supervisors for the company's various activities and gave them full authority to act in my absence. I then told the driver to pick me up early the next morning and take me to the airport. Just as I was about to go through the boarding gate, he handed me something wrapped in a towel. It was warm. I asked him, what is it? Porozaiki. So you're going to give these out of compassion for a crazy person, eh? They're from my wife, Vladimir Nikolaevich. She couldn't sleep and baked all night. She's never baked anything before. She's still a pretty young woman, but last night she plunged right in. She insisted I give them to you. She wrapped them in a towel, still warm. She says you won't be back for a while, if you come back at all. This is goodbye. All right then, thank you very much. He resigned from the firm a few days later. That was the end of chapter 11.